Thank you all for joining us, anyone who is here live or anyone who is watching at a future date on YouTube. I'm so glad that you've joined me for a conversation. So this show is called The Big Idea. And the reason for this show is that the US mission to ASEAN knows that there are a lot of Southeast Asian leaders who not only have had a big idea, but they have turned that big idea into a reality. They have done something with that big idea. So all of us who hope to be leaders, who hope to do big things, who hope to make a difference in the world, in our communities, we all can learn something from these leaders. So I am ready to have a nice conversation with our leader today. I've got my guava juice. I don't think you can see it, but I've got my guava juice. I'm ready to have a chat with our guest of honor today. Her name is Thuy Thien, and she is the founder of Future Deaf Teachers, and she is from Vietnam, but she is joining us virtually today. So I'm in Jakarta, and she's in Vietnam, and we're gonna have a chat. So let's bring her in.
Hello, everyone. To introduce myself, my name is Thuy Thien.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I was just making sure you came in. I'll introduce you. So we have, so as you can see, we now have Thuy Thien. She's here, and her translator, Thuy Thien is deaf, but she has a translator with her today, and her name is An, and she will be translating everything that Thuy Thien says and everything I say, and hopefully this will work very smoothly. So, Thuy Thien, I see that you have a shirt on, and it says, for the audience, PARD. So tell us about what that means.
Yeah, so before that, I would like to say hello to everyone, and also thank you for inviting me to be part of this show, and also to be the first guest to share my story. So my name is Thuy Thien, and I am a deaf person from Vietnam. I am now working as the director of PARD, as the logo you see on my t-shirts. So PARD is stands for Psychoeducation and Applied Research Center for the Deaf, or we call PARD Vietnam. And in sign language, this is the sign for PARD. So the meaning of this sign is that sign language is a native language of deaf people. And it is the voice of deaf people, and where we can advocate for our rights. So at PARD, we work on the empowerment for the deaf community, for deaf people to be confident and independent. And the spirit that we hold at PARD is nothing about deaf without deaf. We're also working on advocacy for the rights of deaf people, and also to empower deaf leaders all around Vietnam.
It's fantastic, a noble cause. So today, I want to get to know you a little bit, and I want to get to know about your life and your perspective on leadership. So the first thing that I want to know is, when you were a child, I'd be curious to know who was a role model for you. All of us have a first role model when we're children. Maybe it's a parent or an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor, a friend, a teacher. Who is your role model?
Yes, I do have a role model, and his name is Mike Kemp. And he's a deaf person from the United States. So when I first met him, I was 16 years old, and Mr. Kemp came to Vietnam. So he introduced that he is holding a PhD degree and working as a professor at Gallaudet University in the United States. in sign language education major. And I told him that is impossible because in Vietnam, I never seen anyone as a deaf person holding a PhD degree. And Kem said to me, no, that's true. I said, really? So I will explain a little bit because at that time in Vietnam, the education for deaf people is far left behind. So we only have primary school level for deaf people. That's why I have never seen any deaf people in Vietnam that pursue higher education. So I think that is impossible. So back to the story. Kem told me that no, that's true. I'm a professor and holding a PhD degree. So Kem told me that I am deaf and you are deaf too, but we just can do anything in life because we have sign language. If the teaching approach is suitable for deaf people, you can just develop as anybody else in the society. Yeah, we are just equal as everyone else. And each of us have different capacity. So if you have an opportunity, you have to take it and pursue your dream. And that's really inspired me and totally changed my life because since then I focus on my sign language and then develop myself, and afterwards I received a full scholarship to take my master degree at Gallaudet University and with the same major as sign language education like Dr. Kem. And after graduate from my master degree, I came back to Vietnam, and that's how I became who I am today and what I am to do. And the projects of future deaf teachers is also one of the passions that I want to do.
And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I have a little more to ask you first. So, were your parents deaf? Your mother, your father?
No, my parents, they are hearing. Only me is the deaf person in the family.
So what did your parents do to help you as a child? How did you learn sign language?
Yeah, so when I was a child, in my primary school, they use oral method to teach deaf people. So it's not suitable for me. So I feel that it's really difficult for my communications. And then I couldn't even share my thoughts with my parents. So then after that, there is a project funded by Nippon Foundations. And that's when Dr. Kem from the United States came to Vietnam and teach us in sign language analysis and other subjects. And that's when I changed my mind. And also my parents really support me to learn sign language and to join the project. But then my parents couldn't learn sign language to communicate with me because they are at quite old now, so it's quite tough for them. But because I have Vietnamese writing, so that we still can communicate using pen and paper, and they really support for me in life.
Because that must have felt a little lonely as a child, wanting to express your thoughts, but you didn't know sign language yet. And when you didn't know writing yet, it must have been very difficult for you because you couldn't communicate.
So last time when the teaching method is not suitable for me, so I didn't know sign language, so it was difficult. But then when I communicate with more deaf friends, it's become easier for me. But then I could not come to go out to the society and communicate with other hearing people. But for me, I didn't feel lonely or sad because I already have my sign language. So since then, I developed myself, and then now I can be inclusive in the society.
Yeah. Wow. So when did you first think, okay, I can I can be a leader. I can make a difference. I want to change this educational system in Vietnam, and I don't want to just complain about it. I want to actually do something.
So it all started when I came to the United States to earn my master's degree. So I have attended and learned a lot about those events or campaigns from the deaf community in the United States, like the Deaf Resident Now campaign, where deaf people they raising their voice and taking their rights. So I also even like feel very touched. I cry and very motivated to see how deaf people standing up for their voice and their rights. When looking back at Vietnam, our deaf community, we can see that we are lack of confidence. We do not know our deaf identity, so we couldn't stand up for our rights. So I have tried my best to learn a lot about advocacy, about deaf identity in the United States, and then came back to Vietnam to deliver what I have learned to other deaf leaders in Vietnam, especially about the identity of being a deaf person. Yeah, and it's how it's gradually growing right now.
Wow. So tell our audience a little bit about this Future Deaf Teachers Group. What is the goal of this group?
So before telling you about the project Future Deaf Teachers, I would like to explain a little bit. So sign language is the native language of deaf people. However, in Vietnam, the government do not pay attention or recognize the importance of sign language. So it creates a lot of barriers in education and communication for deaf people. And for sign language interpreters, we have less than 10 sign language interpreters in the whole country. And they only live in big cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. So in the provincial areas, there is no sign language interpreters. So the Future Deaf Teachers Project focus on the Mekong Delta in the southern Vietnam. And we empower the potential deaf teachers to be confident and equip them with sign language teaching techniques so that they can promote the sign language to the society. After that, they will come back to their hometown and then organize sign language classes for hearing people. Yeah, and that's when we will narrow the gap between the communications of hearing and deaf people.
I was going to ask you that question. So this program is both for deaf teachers as well as hearing teachers who want to educate deaf children.
No, so for this program, we mainly focus on deaf teachers. So for deaf teachers, they will learn about the teaching skills and techniques, how to teach sign language to hearing people. So that's also my major that I learned in the United States. So after they gain the skill and techniques, they will come back to their hometown and then they teach sign language to hearing people. And after that, hearing people can become sign language interpreters.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing is that deaf teachers, when they join this program, they can be confident and they know their capability and what they can do to promote the sign language.
Absolutely. I learned a little sign language myself. Don't quiz me right now, but when I was a Boy Scout and a child, I had to learn the Pledge of Allegiance in sign language. And I was so fascinated that, well, I've always been fascinated with languages, that you can reach all kinds of people. You just have to learn the skills to do so. So I'm sure many, many hearing people will be eager or have been eager to work with the deaf teachers who are educated with your program, and then they go back to their communities. So it has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so sign language is the communication tools between deaf and hearing people. So it's also a connections between us as a society.
so let's say someone in your community wanted to help your group, your organization. What kind of volunteer activities could people do to help out your cause? Both deaf and hearing.
So at PRAD, we really prioritize on deaf leaders. And so if anyone want to join PRAD, first you need to be understand of the problems of their communities. Really understand what the needs of the community is, and also have suitable skills that we are looking for. And also have a connections with other deaf community throughout Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. So this month is Women's History Month in the United States, the month of March. And I'm curious whether you think deaf women in Southeast Asia face challenges that are different from the challenges faced by deaf men.
Yep. So I think from my perspective, I think in Southeast Asia, many of my friends that they're from Muslim culture, they say that there is inequality between deaf men and deaf women. Specifically from Vietnam, I also see a little bit in the gap of inequality between both gender. So many opportunities are given for deaf men, but lesser opportunity given for deaf women. Like they need to stay at home and take care of their kids. Let's say if a deaf woman wants to get married, then they need to depend on the decisions of their parents. Whereas for the deaf men, they can take their own decision. And there also violence against deaf women. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that are some issues.
Mm-hmm. Some challenges. Well, I want to pause for a moment because we have a question from YouTube. This is from Didi, and she asks, may I know if Thien is talking in English or Vietnamese with sign language?
So my first language is Vietnamese Sign Language. My second language is Vietnamese writing and reading. My fourth language is American Sign Language, and my third language is American Sign Language, and my fourth language is English writing and reading. Yeah, so right now I'm using sign language, but let's say when I'm outside without sign language interpreters, I will use writing to communicate with hearing people.
Mm-hmm. But it was very interesting. We were talking before the interview about how many forms of sign language there are from country to country. But fortunately, people who speak sign language, as Thien explained, that you're visual learners. So you're able to pick up additional forms of sign language quickly.
Yes, that's right. And because deaf people, we also use a lot of gestures. And since we was a child, we already seeing a lot of gestures, and we are visual learners, so we can connect things, visualize, and then can learn quickly. So I will give an example. Let's say in Vietnam, Vietnamese deaf people and American deaf people using different sign language. But then if a American deaf person come to Vietnam, then we will use gestures like eating, like sleeping, like drinking water to communicate with each other. Yeah, so that's how we communicate.
Well, we have another great question from YouTube, and this one is from Ella Sue. And the question is, well, there's two questions. Does Vietnam have a strong interest in helping or supporting the deaf community? And what's the biggest challenge the deaf community faces right now in Vietnam?
Thank you for your question. So for the first questions, so in the past, yeah, the government do not pay much attention on the deaf community, but since there is the conventional right for the deaf people, CRBD, from the United Nations, then the government starting to have plans and focus more on the deaf communities. For your second questions, the most challenging barrier that we are facing right now is education, because most of deaf people in Vietnam is only finish their primary school. And that's really limit their opportunities in life. So they have lesser opportunity in employment. Like let's say in Vietnam, we have only 30 deaf teachers, where the population of deaf people in Vietnam is around 2.6 million, and only 30 deaf teachers. So you can see that the proportion is very, very small. Yeah, so.
Not enough.
Yes, that's right. It's too little.
So I have a general question about teaching for you. I have a lot of people in my circle, my family, my friends who are teachers. What's a tip that you have for teachers that you've learned in your experiences? And this is a general question because some of the challenges of teaching deaf children are the same as teaching hearing children. What's a good tip that you have for teachers?
So my first tip is that the teachers need to know about the needs and the suitable approach, teaching approach for their students. Secondly, and teachers also need to learn and gain new skills. Let's say not only in Vietnam, if they're working in Vietnam, but also learn and try new materials from other countries. So for deaf students, because we are visual learners, so the teachers need to use different tools and visualize materials so that the deaf students can learn quickly, and also using sign language to deliver the lessons. So that is important.
Excellent. So we are going to have information about future deaf teachers in the description of our video when we post it to YouTube. But I want to transition a bit because we're coming to the end of our interview, and I want to ask some fun questions so we can get to know Thien a little bit better. So my first question, if you could visit any city in the United States in 2022, which one would you choose?
So I will choose Washington, D.C. because it was my Gallaudet University located. So I want to visit my university, and also thanks for everyone that's supporting me during my learning journey over there. That's where I become who I am today. And also that's where I can establish my part organizations and empower the deaf community in Vietnam.
I love DC, one of my favorite cities. Next question. When I travel to Vietnam, and all the listeners travel to Vietnam, where should we visit?
So I would like to introduce you guys to visit Ho Chi Minh City because this is where I was born, and also in Ho Chi Minh City, there is a lot of traffic jam you may experience from that, and we have different cuisines, cultures, and Ho Chi Minh City is a very, very hot city, hot weather. So we do not have 4 seasons like maybe in the United States, so you can try to experience the weather as well.
Well, we'll see how many of the audience members can see where I'm from in the United States. And that is the image behind me. It gives you a clue. So I hope you get to visit there someday. We have another question from Irfan MK. What's the most popular food in Vietnam?
So there are 2. It's bánh mì and phở. So bánh mì is we call it like Vietnamese sandwich. So inside the baguette, you will have like meat, like pork or even chicken, and then the pate and vegetables. And it's like this long of my arms.
Wow.
yeah. It's a normal size. And the second one is
cut it up in pieces, or do you try to swallow it the whole thing?
we eat in pieces, so we just do it like this. Okay, and then the second one is phở, which is very famous. I think many international fans knows that Vietnam is famous for phở. Phở is a kind of noodles with beef, and the noodles is made from rice.
I have another food question for you. So what is your guilty pleasure? Something that you shouldn't eat, it's not good for you, but you eat it now and then.
So I think for me it's milk tea, because milk tea can make it become fatter. But then many young people in Vietnam right now love to drink milk tea every day. Secondly, we also have something we call bánh tráng trộn, or the rice paper, mixed rice paper. So it's like rice paper, and then they cut it into small pieces and mix with salt and like eggs and other things. But actually it's not really good for health, but we like to eat it.
We all have our guilty pleasures. I'll reveal mine at some point. We have another question from YouTube. Dion asks, should I visit Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City first? I can guess what you're going to say, but let's see.
So I think you should first visit Hanoi and then the northern part of Vietnam where you can see mountains and different landscape. And they also have cold weather from like October to November. And then after that, you fly to Ho Chi Minh City and enjoy the hot weather. And in Ho Chi Minh City, yeah, you can see a different landscape and like the city view. So it's different views from different regions.
And we can meet you and have some milk tea.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. But be careful of getting fat.
Next question. What is your favorite holiday?
So my favorite holiday is Tet, Lunar New Year in English, because it's occasions where all the family members gather and then celebrate for the new year. We eat together, we talk together, and it's really happy.
Lovely. What?
And also there is also a very special occasions that occur in September, which is on the 23rd of September, is the International Days of Sign Language. So it's an occasions where deaf people all over the world celebrate the importance of sign language and the deaf community.
We'll have to have you back in September, and you can tell us all how to celebrate.
Yes.
Speaking of sign language, what is one of your favorite signs to make?
So this is the sign for I can do it. Yes, I can do it. Yes, you did it right.
What is one of your least favorite signs to make? Now, this is a family show, so it has to be clean, but what is one of your least favorite?
So it's you cannot do it. So that's the sign. Cannot.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What makes you happy?
So I am happy when I'm working together with my deaf community on the empowerment journey and seeing the development of our community. That's made me really happy. And after coming back from the United States, I'm sharing and deliver what I have learned to the deaf community in Vietnam, and seeing everyone to stand up for their voice and their rights. That really make me happy.
And what is something about Southeast Asia that you would like Americans to know?
So to answer your questions, so in Southeast Asia, we have different cultures. And also different perspective from different countries. So from the United States and Southeast Asia, we can learn from each other.
I love that. I love that. Well, that's a wonderful moment to end our interview. I want to let our audience know that we will have information about future deaf teachers, so you can be in contact with Dean if you would like to help her effort in any way. And if you like this program, I hope you subscribe to our channel and you give us ideas for other people to interview. We'll be doing our next event next Tuesday. We have another wonderful speaker for you. And just thanks everyone for joining us. What an amazing guest. So thank you, Thien. Thank you, An, for translating. I had such a delight talking to both of you, and I learned a lot. And I hope everyone watching learns a lot too. So thank you so much. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason and everyone.
Oh, is this like this?
Just a little bit more. So I will explain. For hearing people is clapping because you can hear, but for deaf people, we visualize learners. So we use this for clapping.
All right, everyone at home.
Yes, that's great.
Thank you so much.